Hi guys, today's guest we've got Yammy. Do you want to be called Yammy or Samson today?
Good afternoon, everyone. No, Samson, honey. Sorry,
Samson?
drifting a bit there.
It's okay, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me. Not many do.
I've got a question to start off. If you was on a deserted desert island, what are 2 items you'd bring with you?
Deserted for how long? Or just deserted?
It's deserted.
Blow up doll? No, no. Why did you have to say that?
We'll start off from the beginning of your story. What was life like for you growing up?
Life in the beginning of time, went to school in West London, moved from East London Bow Road to Ladbroke Grove. Not really a happy household, so to speak. Mum and dad arguing a lot. Used to remember mum getting hit and I'd want to go to her rescue. Moved to Lisson Grove from Ladbroke Grove early. Schooling, I was average. Though very small for my age, good sportsman. One day, when it all started to go badly wrong, I suppose, was mum and dad were arguing so much that they decided to take us to Barry Island in Wales for a holiday, Butlins, right? But we used to go there like kind of every year. I had a godfather called Mr. Hall, a Yorkshireman, who was my mum's friend, but an older man who was a landlord at the previous home in Ladbroke Grove, and they wanted to use the trip to Butlins as a patching up kind of thing. But we went first with, me and my 2 sisters went first with my godfather, Mr. Hall, and were waiting for them to arrive on their own, my mother and father. So they got there within a day. They was in the billet next door, the cabin, whatever you want to call it, and arguments started. I could hear the arguments through the wall, and then all the crying started again between me and my sisters, and they went back early the next morning, realising that it was going to affect our little holiday. And I'm thinking, honey, that it was the day Elvis Presley died. Right?
How old was you?
I'd have had to have been about 9 or 10, I think. Because I remember it flashing up on the news, and I liked Elvis Presley. And I remember seeing his picture on telly saying that he'd overdosed and died. And it was definitely around about that time, unless it was the year before, but I can't get it, but I think it would be. And when my father was driving home with my mum, he had a stroke whilst driving. So all the arguments and everything. And then obviously the ambulance had to come, and he went straight to hospital. When mum got home, she took an overdose. So they're both in hospital. So when we came back from Butlins to go home with Mr. Hall, our godfather, there was obviously no one to look after us. So then one of those nights, either the second or third night, I remember going to the hospital to see both parents in a coma kind of thing. Obviously I was more worried about mum. Didn't have really good feelings about my dad, to be fair, at that time.
Yeah.
Though in later life I kind of realised it was probably a bit harsh for me, but then you don't know at the time. You just think that your mum's being hurt and you're not knowing what probably came out in the end, but still no excuse to be hitting women. But so then we went back home to Lisson Green, and then on the second or third night, social services were at the door saying that we had to go into care, that one of the parents had signed it over from their bedside that there's no one to look after us. So me and my 2 sisters screaming, pulling, shoving all the neighbours out. Definitely screams, honey. And in a car, in our pyjamas, my sisters in their nightgowns and everything, rainy, dark night, and turned up at a children's home in Westbourne Park down the road from Labrador Grove, and doorbell being pressed with a social worker into care.
How old were your sisters?
One 1 year younger and one year older.
What was your time like in care?
I would say out of the three of us, I probably didn't take it too well. Didn't like being away from my mum. She was drinking at that time. My dad, obviously, with the stroke, was disabled now, at home in the same place, but we wasn't allowed to see them. I don't even think we were allowed to have mum or dad visit us.
Why was
I
that?
don't know. I think it was the social services of some kind, but I can't really remember that detail too well, honey. But when I was obviously crying, going into school now, not from your home, but being in a children's home, and then, you know, sometimes people take the mix, some people quite sad. There weren't too many in care in my year at that time.
Yeah.
Now, but I used to go to school crying and everything. But I always used to hear little things about my mum. She was still out and about, going to bars and places in Queensway, Bayswater. So I used to listen to other children my age who I used to hang around with, and their older brothers would tell me that your mum was seen last night in this bar and that bar. But I started to sneak out at night from the children's home. I used to have to leave the mat on the back door so that I wouldn't get locked out. But I used to go and wait outside the bars.
How
for
old
my
was
mum
you
to
when
come
you
out.
would wait outside the
About
bars?
10.
10.
But I looked about 5. So I always used to go outside the 2 bars and then see somebody's older sister come out. What you doing here, Sammy? This time of night, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, walking from Westbourne Park up to Queensway. It's not a long walk. When you're little, it's quite a long walk now. But I never used to see her come out, really. But then later on, I heard she used to go out the back door and they used to make sure that I was gone. But then I got caught, and then you get grounded at the children's home. You're not allowed out. And then some bad things happened. The 2 years I was in that children's home by a manager of the children's home. And abuse started to take part. And it's a subject I've talked about before, so I feel a bit stronger in talking about it now, even more stronger. That obviously you can't feel guilty. No, I shouldn't even say that, really. The reality is that he was taking liberties with me, and I used to be in my bedroom late at night, and I used to have that sense of foreboding that he was going to come and kind of interfere with me, but I just didn't like it. It went on for quite some time, and then someone told me to report it. Went in front of the social services, and I remember sitting around with my social worker and about 8 people sitting around with all their pens out and everything. But by the end of what I said, it looked like they didn't really want to go through with doing anything, or they didn't believe me. I was getting mixed feelings, but yet when I went back to the children's home, he had his own flat on the premises. So it was an adjoining where he was manager. He lived on site. But then when he came out one of those mornings after I made the allegations, with dark glasses on. And then I find out that he's been suspended while the inquiry's going on. So maybe they was doing, on careful inspection, maybe they might have been doing something about it. But why would it be? Mind you, I didn't stay there long enough for it to last. But then, of course, they were making me feel guilty for making the allegations, other members of staff. So one morning, with all the crying going on, honey, I didn't want to go to school. So I was sitting at the breakfast table and I said, no, I'm not going. And then this other man, 6'5", I was about 4 foot, said, no, you're going. And lifted me up, opened the door, threw me out on the balcony. And all the other kids were on the balcony getting ready to go to school. And then he shut the door. And then I was outside fuming, hurt, shame, guilt, whatever. You feel that, some of it might be your fault. That's how they were making me feel. So I reached into the school bag, and them days you had a geometry set with a compass. Well, not the biggest weapon, but a weapon, no doubt, and probably shows how much I was hurting at that time, having been through it, and you're made to feel the bad, which is another subject anyway, honey. But I pulled out the compass anyway, pressed the doorbell. When the doorbell opened, I rushed into him and started stabbing him all over in his neck and face and everywhere with the compass. And he fell backwards, but I got out of there, got the bag, run down the landing, the balcony, and jumped on the number 31 bus to school. And later on in the day, the police turned up there. That's how it went.
What was going through your head when you did that? Did you feel relief doing it?
I felt brave. I felt like I don't know. Yeah, that's right. It was really, I was thinking, yeah, see? You fight back, didn't you?
That's so wrong. Of you being 10 years old though, and then making you feel guilty for just telling them what's going on.
Yeah.
Was there anyone inside like care that kind of looked after you and like helped you out in there? Like, was there any role models that you had growing up?
Well, after that, being charged, something happened to the member of staff further down the line, the one that I stabbed. So I stayed in Stamford House for about a year or so, and then they put me into, but I never got no help about the allegation, nothing like that. So no, once I went to Stamford House, then I learned that other delinquent boys were in for other things, robberies, burglaries, other crimes, and then I got assessed from Stamford House, ended up with only the ABH charge of stabbing the member of staff, but there was going to be something more serious. They wanted me to plead something more serious before they dropped it to ABH eventually, because an old tea lady said, don't you admit to anything more serious, because they were wrong and all that. So I listened to her, didn't listen to my godfather at the first stage. But then we moved to I moved to Mozart, another children's home, Mozart Estate, West London, which is up the road from Ladbroke Grove. And that's where I got into the burgling to start with. West London was predominantly known for creating, I suppose, burglars, because the rough areas, so to speak, are surrounded by loads of rich areas. Yeah. So I grew up with that kind of mentality. The early role models that I was looking up to at that time, we would say that East London had the city and were more on the pavement, like with robberies and things. South London was like probably the ghetto of everywhere. I mean, going through it today, it still looks absolutely horrible. So they were probably a bit of everything, South London. North London was a bit mixed as well, but West London was predominantly, you get the odd teams and crime, criminal men and women doing armed robberies and security vans and banks and them things. But predominantly my area, Ladbroke Grove, Mozart, Lisson Grove, it was more like a occupational hazard to go burgling.
Did you have, when you first went burgling, did you go alone, or did you have anyone show you kind of how to do it, or did you learn together or anything?
No, the first one, I would describe myself as stroke Oliver Twist and then turned into the Artful Dodger, if you want the truth, because I was a little baby at first, but the tallest man in Mozart Estate, I looked up to him, still like him today actually. He was slick, he was tall, he had everything, like for a 14-year-old or 15-year-old, I can't remember what age I was when I went to Mozart. But the first time would have been, he put me through a window because he couldn't get through, and he said, just open the door for me, but I was shaking bad, breathing hard.
Do you want to explain your first robbery and how that happened?
My first one was that one, and I opened the door for him.
Oh.
But I couldn't find nothing in the... I didn't search properly enough, didn't really know him, and I was just watching him where he looked in the socks and, I mean, in the wardrobe and, picking up little tips, but I was really scared, honey. And then started to go out regular with him and others, and it seemed, I don't know, it was just the time. I look back on that little time, not with fond memories for being a thief. I found it exciting and exhilarating, but I was still scared up to a point. And Then one day I went out with him again, and the first real big kind of lot of jewelry, and that was like at 14 or something, and we was over not far from Regent's Park, and really nice area, and he taught me the bucket and sponge, knock on the doors, because I looked small and innocent. He taught me the Boy Scout uniform, didn't he? With a car wash, so you knock on the door. He's 6 foot odd and black at kind of, or dark I should say, because during those going into rich areas at that time, the colour of your skin, if you walked up the road and you was black, they might phone the police without, before you do it, not being funny or anything. But it was like that, which is probably why someone who looks a bit white, foreign, innocent, you knock on the doors, you kind of, you know, it's being used to your advantage to con people, basically. So then I turned up at the door, got into this rich building, and knocked on the door, but there was no answer. But then I was on the landing, and he started taking long run-ups and kicking the door. And then the whole door fell off its hinges and that, right? Bad. But not then at the time. But my heart was beating. I was thinking, this apartment goes on forever long, with so many rooms, and you come in, you can smell the aftershave, the Cartier, the Van Cleef and Arpels, you go like that. And then I was running about. But then I found a box with kind of white, with diamonds, and he was going, that's it. And he took it off me. So, and I was running about, he goes, just take everything that looks like it, take it, the fur coats and all that kind of stuff, right? And I was breathing hard, still scared at this time. And then, yeah, they took me to the shop, made me wait outside, and come out and give me a few £100. So I don't know how much they actually got for it.
Probably a lot more.
So I probably got conned, didn't I? So that was the beginning of all that. Oh, yeah, and he bought me my first croc skin or lizard skin shoes. They were in then. But, you know, I was too small. Nothing ever fitted me. But, yeah, that would have been that time. But then from Mozart State Children's Home, I hadn't been arrested for any crimes at that stage. But they kept saying, the Children's Home was saying, well, he's coming back. He's always got money and everything. So they put me in a approved school in Sussex, West Grinstead, not far from Horsham, for bad boys. And you're not really allowed out, run by brothers. So I went to the approved school, and everyone used to get weekend leave, but I was never allowed to go home. So I used to abscond every so often, but I always used to get caught, honey. And to get beatings there, slapped there. I was too small, still crying by that time.
How old was you at that age?
15, but I probably 15 going on 9 or 10, if you get what I mean. But then I absconded one last time and got away. And then I was living at my friend's house, one of them from Mozart, and went burgling for about 3 weeks. Thus, got my first previous convictions for about 20 odd burglaries. And went to detention centre, short, sharp shock, which I had my first taste of real prison.
I was going to ask as well about the short, sharp shock. What is your opinion on it? Because obviously they don't do it anymore. Do you think they should bring it back, or do you think it's good that they don't do it anymore?
I think they should bring it back.
Yeah, why is that?
Because of discipline and all that. They're getting away lightly these days.
How would you describe how the old coppers used to be compared to now? Have they changed?
Well, they can't get away with some of the things they used to do back then because there was no video things in the interviews, no tape recorders. They used to write things down, honey, and sign it and say, yeah, he said this and said that.
So they
and
could
go into
do
court and say, they used to be able to go into magistrates' court and go in the box for bail in the morning. We object to bail, further offences. He's already said this and said that, but you never said nothing. No, completely different, because they can't get away with, you know, a lot of people got found guilty of crimes by way of stitch-up with the way they used to do things on the word of a policeman's mouth. You see what I mean? But in the end, you know, they changed it to how it is in the present, and quite a while back now. But no, there was different, because you never had the CCTV of like you have now, where it's easier to get arrested. But what you did have was them plotting up outside your house in a car, knowing you're at it and following you everywhere, burglary or robbery squad or whatever, sorry. So, you know, they come out, but they'll fit you up, honey. They come up, walk you, they'll drive past, get out and push. You know, if you had, because you used to use plastic to open up certain doors sometimes, cut a plastic bottle. I couldn't really slide. I was more of a climber, so to speak, and a bit of a con man. But some of my friends used to be able to push the plastic through the door and slide, but then they'd stop us, put the plastics that they had, the police, and put it in everyone's pockets and say, you're going equipped.
Stitched you up.
They were liberty takers, mate. They were liberty takers. They couldn't do all that now. You're having this. Yours, boy, yours.
Do you want to talk about detention centre as well quickly? Yeah. What was that like there? Do you remember your first day or anything?
Yeah. I would. What happened was quite, when I look back now, honey, is when I got into the juvenile court to go to detention centre for the burglars, there was 3 of us. The only times I've really had co-defendants in life, really, because most of my crimes have been on my own and me in the dock on my own, yeah? Because then I learned to do things alone because that's the way that I was taught. And the 3 of us were standing there and the laid bench, I'll never forget, there's 3 of them and there's an older lady, right? She says, look, no, we don't want to send you to detention centre. We think it's bad and we're very upset what's happened to you in the children's home. She said it to me. But I said, no, I'm not going out. I'm not going to the children, no, back to no children. We've got a better place for you this time, Sammy. That's what they're trying to tell me. And I was in the courtroom going, nah. I want to go to detention centre. I asked to. And then they went out and because you won't agree to, we reluctantly send you to detention centre for 3 months. So on the way there, 3 of us was in a van from other criminals. I think my other co-defendant went home and got fined. So I was the only one. And someone else, he got a recommendation for something else. But I was in the van going to the detention centre and there was a couple of strangers in there as well. But I was small. But I wanted to do detention centre because I wanted to be able to come out and say, yeah, I've done detention centre. I don't know what was wrong with me, to be honest. Well, I do now. But when you got there and you step out of the van, you had them old type of screws and I got out of the van and he goes, oi. He said, you stand there. And he stand there, he's looking like that. He goes, listen, I'm not your mother. I'm not a social worker. I'm an effing screw. And I'm here to screw you down to the ground. Anything I say to you, a man says, you say, sir. And if a lady addresses you, you say, mom. He said, what's your name? I said, Sammy Misra. And he went like that. Perhaps you didn't say, sir. I started crying. Then you get through the door, right, Ali? You go through, you got to get your kit and all that, right? So I already got water in my eyes. I'm thinking, you bastard. You know that. So you got the kit. He goes, grab that kit and you run down to the bottom, to the end of there, into where you get your shower and your dinner. And you carry that kit. So you run down to the end of the corridor. But when you get to the end of the corridor, it says no running down the corridor. So I've got another slap. Just don't run. Clap again round your head. That's what I'm saying. And then going to eat the food, I'm thinking, what have I let myself in for? So when I got in the cubicle, you go into an induction bit first for 5-6 days before you go into a big dormitory with likewise juvenile delinquents. And so it's glass on the window, but you can't look out in the cubicle. When I woke up, all I could hear out on the yard, it's a yard, a square yard, is left, right, party hold. So it's all the boys in there in separate lineups going to their place of work. Like you've got to dig up the gardens, the potato things, and wherever the workplace is in the prison surroundings. So then you get one party gone, and then I was thinking, wow, bloody hell, this is more like the army. But I kind of took to it. I was the smallest there. Exercise 6 weeks you had to do on £1 a week, getting a toffee bar. You're not allowed to smoke cigarette in juvenile detention centre. But I probably got strong, didn't know it at that size, because they used to make you run around the football pitch with a medicine ball in your hand. And they used to play games like, what's that game called? Casey, what's that game called where British Bulldog, where you got to run through and try and not get, bloody hell, everyone used to kick the shit out of each other. The Screws used to love it all, mate. And you know, you get the big kids as well, the big muscly ones. Then they're stepping, and when I was cheeky as well, and I always answer back, and then someone will try it, they'd come in and go, "Oi, leave him alone." He always got a daddy of somewhere, and then they might, two big ones might fight with each other to see who the daddy is. Just like the Ray Winston film, really, Scum, Borstal.
Yeah.
Exactly like that, really, in reality. The early days and the old days.
Did you make any friends or anything in the detention centre?
Good question, honey. You learned new ways of doing things. Talked to robbers, people even in for manslaughter as kids. Made friends from North London, South London, so that when I got out, they got out around the same time. Me and my mates from West London probably go and meet them and do some more burgling. But by the time I reached my 17th birthday, having come out of detention centre, because I finally went back home, the care order finished, and the social services said nah. So I finally ended up, my dad was obviously disabled, my mum was still living there, and I went back there from detention centre and lasted about 5 months in 1982. After detention centre, 5 months, experienced my first girlfriend while I was out, and got nicked. I got my first arrest after detention centre, where I got nicked with a Boy Scout uniform on.
Do you want to explain that story?
In Rickmansworth. Yeah, it was a judge's house. Yeah.
Oh, I've heard about that. How did that come
You've
about?
heard about that, yeah. So another tall guy
Yeah.
gets me on the train, and I'm a bit more swagger. I start thinking that I'm a little bit tougher now after doing detention centre, right? Turned up in Rickmansworth, and he said, "No, that Yammy, this one here's got it all in there, and all that. This one could be the greatest touch of all time." And so I knocked on the door, but someone opened it, and I said, "Yeah, car wash." So I had the Boy Scout uniform on with the cap. They said, no. Try next door, they might want it, but we don't. But little did I know, I kind of felt the vibe from the person. So when I walked back to him, I said, "Look, I think it's a bit hot round. It was really quiet. Not the kind of areas." And that was 1982, 83. Imagine what it's like now, right? It turned out it was a judge's house anyway. So that nature. So when I said, "Look, let's get out of here, go to the next," he said, "Let's get out of it and go to the next stop on the train line." Can't remember where that, but I know Rickmansworth might be not far from Watford or like that. But before we reached the station, all the police cars came back right from all angles and stopped us and said, "Yeah, you were just knocking on doors. We believe you were trying." So whoever they was, they phoned the police and said that they thought we was no good, which we wasn't really, which we was no good.
Did you end up getting nicked for that?
I got nicked, yeah.
What did you get nicked for?
So probably the only time I ever get conspiracy to burgle, because I went in there and I admitted everything, I'm afraid, right?
Yeah.
By what you say, then I realised what you say is going to be used in evidence. So what time did you leave? Because you're only young, right? And I know it goes against the code and all that, but I honestly didn't realise. I said I left the house. He got off, the other fella, because he kept quiet. So I went like that. I said, "Yeah, I left the house at 9 o'clock in the morning, so they give me a conspiracy charge."
You basically
Stupid.
grassed yourself up.
Oh, yeah, stupid idiot. And then I went, but they give me bail. I remember that was the only police station I ever got Kentucky in, because there was no cafeteria or anything, and I had the food. And then went home, and then a month later, whilst on bail for that, I got banged to rights, and I came through the back on my own for a small little window. And then when I got in, a geezer come out with a towel around him out of the bath. But there's no way I wouldn't be able to climb back out to get out in time. So he got the phone wires and strangled me with the wires. "You little bastards," and all that. I was crying like a baby, right? So there's no way out. And Pallet Green came for me. And I ended up, they joined that case with the case in Rickmansworth, went to Ashford for the first time, right? And got 3.5 years for the one where I got tied up by the owner, and 6 months consecutive for the conspiracy. So I ended up in Chelmsford, which was a young Wandsworth at that time, serious place, smallest there, and straight to Aylesbury.
What was the prisons like there?
It's a different time to now. You get all the most dangerous kids who raped, murdered, snatch old women's handbags, burglars, robbers, GBHs, everybody in the pond in Aylesbury at the same time. A learning curve for me. So I would have got there about 83, and years and years I got looked after as usual as a youngster. But then I started fighting in there. Because I was into my sports and that, football, mouthy, cheeky geezer, me, even when smaller. So that was my apprenticeship for the institutional stay that would continue for a lifetime until now. So Aylesbury was dark. Everyone was looking to make a name for themselves. I was on the pool table I wasn't playing pool, I was just standing there with a heavy mob at that time. There was a geezer, I swear his name was Parker with ginger hair, from somewhere anyway, or geezer. I shouldn't say his name really, or try and remember it. But he was from East London, but there was his brothers from Wolverhampton or somewhere like that, or Birmingham. Big lumps and all that. But they tried it on with him, and he broke, because them days you got the sauce bottle in glass. Now you get it in plastic. But he broke it in front of everyone and cut the pair of them. So it was the first real bit of violence I saw. I said, what? So this is what you got to do to... and then I witnessed a lot of bad fights in there.
Can you recall any?
Yeah, there was a riot there when I was there.
Why
And a
was there a
protest in
riot?
Aylesbury. It would have been 83, 84, where what happened was there was a geezer from West London, right? Rest in peace now. His name was Longers, right? So I knew him, but older than me a little bit. He had a fight. He was in the showers, and the staff started holding him. One was holding him and another was punching him, but it was being witnessed by other inmates.
Oh, the screws were doing that whole
Yeah,
thing?
to him, yeah, in the shower,
Okay.
well, because you only get one shower a week them days.
Oh, okay.
And no showers in the cell, no TVs, no phones, 1 letter a week. And they were holding, but it was witnessed by a couple of inmates. So in the evening on association, everybody refused to bang up. At night, after association, I'll never forget Mr. What's his name, who thought he had a good repertoire with the inmates. He went, now come on lads, you listen to me, all of you go upstairs. Everyone started pelting him. It all went off, it went off. And I got staying in Aylesbury a couple of years, my learning curve, and I started to have fights at that time as well. Fist fights, but it was brought back to weapons with me at some stage. Always, I think, from that first crime, that it was always my safety net, that if I was in real trouble, that I go into my pocket, because I always made allowances from an early age. I got a bit bigger and stronger in later years, and then thinking I could have a row, but I'd always walk with a weapon, unfortunately, honey.
Yeah, I joined you on live the other day and you pulled out a pair of nunchucks from behind you.
And the knuckle chuckle.
Yeah.
God. But it wasn't mine. It was Uncle T's. I know, it didn't look good there. I know, I can't really use them to that, but I can, a little bit. But honey, yeah, Aylesbury then started up to 1-0, where all the big names was.
What's some big names that you came across?
Freddie Foreman, Roy Hilder, Del Croxton, Martin Stevens, Danny Mullins. During that time, Bill the Bomb.
Who's Bill the Bomb?
Billy Django Williams from East London, who's probably the hardest man I ever met. From that life, right from the beginning of time. Gerald Copeland, Johnny Reed, Freddie Foreman's right hand, Mickey Blackmore. A lot of the early name, Chrissy Long. A lot of them the villains from Yes They Was There, Danny Roth. They were all in their kind of heyday, but they weren't much older than me. I was a young 20-year-old. I think, like 20. I grew up in institutions, honey. So I'd say I was a late developer, but I was watching them and looking at them as great role models, I'm afraid.
Yeah, she didn't really have that to show you different.
No.
Growing up. So you've served like a long time in prison. And what would you say the worst prison that you went to was?
It depends who's in there at the time. Like, I would say swell side, and it ain't even category A, B cat, but it's terrible swell side, right? You could die in there. You don't even see the staff sometimes because the cells are situated where the office is upstairs or was. I can't. It might have changed now. Albany, Isle of Wight, dying there as well. Many deaths there as well. Nutters in there as well. All kind of crimes and long termers for all. You get weirdos. You get men walking about in dresses and all that. But they stay on normal locations, some of them. But all kinds. Killers doing life from the 80s. And Long Lartin, category A. Worstest. But in the beginning, going, the more worse it was, the more that I liked it. Because it passed the time. But now, when looking back, I'll say they're the worstest conditions. But it's only because at the time, when deciding how I was going to behave in certain places, there's places I've been when it's really quiet and I behave the same way.
Yeah, I suppose
But
time
then
goes quicker when there's more stuff
drama,
going on.
But then the heights and the violence that I was seeing at a young age by going to the B cats and A cats, it left me no room to bargain with myself to take things easy. So being a kamikaze pilot anyway.
What is a Cat A prison like from
Cat
your
A prison
experience?
is long term. A lot of people, a lot of men, women, never getting out for the short term future. Cat A, you're on the book kind of thing. I wasn't on the book. My behaviour in prison in the B cats probably got me to the A cats because of my bad behaviour, running about and getting shipped out from everywhere. But honey, the A cats, a lot of bitters and twisted, a lot of psychos, So my motto was, I might as well just go all out anyway, because I was led to believe that even if you kept quiet or you tried, you've got skeletons in the closet, you've done a few bad things in jail already, so you've got to be on your guard, I'm afraid. You make your bed and you lie in it. So I would be walking about with weapons and thinking, it's do or die, and if you come for me, I'm going to kill you. And if you think that, like, you've all out kamikaze way, like probably always is, but my coping mechanism was to run about and get drugs off everyone. And if you didn't give me no drugs, then I wouldn't be your friend.
Was that inside prison that you'd get
prison.
that? What was your?
That's how I started at taking drugs, really.
What was your drug of choice in prison?
The dark stuff. I never done it on the outside, but I didn't like puffing honey. But I realised when smoking that shit, it kills your emotions.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be different, like when I was on the out doing the white stuff. That used to get me really frantic and off key. But in jail, the dark stuff, it was a purpose to run around and no life outside, basically succumbing to a life of institutions very early on and passing the time and a coping mechanism to get through it, I suppose, because I'd been in from 12 years old and really no time out at all. And then you get to, I think I only started taking it at the late 20s it was late. And then it became a thing, something to graph for every day rather than just behave and get your time done. But I lost all my time because I wouldn't listen, because I made it the be-all and end-all for something to do, and I like being in danger. I like digging holes for myself, and I want to see if I can get out of them. That's how I got the name YAMMY in some ways. So I kind of glorified in being a jammy bastard, basically, taking a piss. But I got to be the only man in history that did everything wrong and got away with it, really, to be honest. But I got looked after as well by the boys. They put up with my shit. Probably not because they're scared of me. I might come in handy now and again, but in reality, they probably liked me. I thought, just give it to him. But all the major ones, like, people like your granddad and, some of the ones I've talked about on podcasts, they would give the advice of not to touch. You don't need to. It don't suit you. It goes, when you're clean, everything's just smooth and thing. And the main ones wouldn't want to give me any gear. They'd probably send money into my account because I weren't really in touch with the outside world. They make sure I get canteen and things, but I was just kept in. I built up my physique from really early institutional, from Aylesbury onwards. So then I got stronger and stronger naturally, and lifter, runner, jumper. And then what else could I do in institutions?
Yeah.
I'd done all my reading from young, so It was really what do next then. Or
Do you
living.
enjoy reading?
I did read in the early days, yeah.
Did you read inside prison and stuff
Yeah,
to pass time?
yeah. I read up on the kind of trauma side of stuff, self-taught, psychological books, Freud, Jung. Done the fiction ones in Aylesbury, an early adult with Sidney Sheldon and Jackie Collins and what's the other favourite one? There used to be Harold Robbins, Jeffrey Archer. I met him in prison. But yeah, I went through that stage and then I started reading and then connecting the dots to what happened when I was younger because I never really got much counselling and talked to anyone. Never really done many courses in there either, honey. And taught myself what might have happened, what was my fault, what wasn't. Then you work it all out, but you know, with trauma, you kind of, you numb, it's buried in there, but when you take stuff, it enhances. And up until being out now, being teetotal now for the first time off alcohol as well, that was the last thing, hurdle, I suppose, that I crossed. It all engenders chaotic behaviour in me. But yet when I'm clean, I seem to manage perfectly well, so.
I hope you do realise that everything that happened to you when you was younger was not your fault at all.
No, not the beginning, but then the burgling of the rich and fame going out, and I thought it was normal, honey, because I looked up to those guys and the way that they did it, coming back and showing people the jury, look what I've got. They really used to get nicked or arrested at the scenes of crimes, but I always used to leave all the evidence behind. And then the OB would come looking for me, but remember, I only used to have short periods out. So you got to look at it, really. If you go away from 82 to 85, then you go away from 85 to 88, then you go away from 88 to 90, then I got the Queen's pardon for saving the probation's life in 90, then they all started calling me names. Then I changed indefinitely to YAMMY and just became a pest in there and a bit of a loon. And then from 90 to 92, 92 to 94, 94 to 2000, 2000 to 2010, 2010 to 2012. So you're talking like really in reality in the 40 years, 5 months out was the longest in one go. And one Christmas in 37 years. Never a calendar year out since the age of 12, January to January. So I missed out on everything because you're coming out on crime sprees, doing things to people that didn't really do anything to you.
Yeah.
Doing it because I felt that it was who I was. And the judge sentenced me one day. Everybody was begging for my release. He said, yeah. He goes, it's all he knows. He doesn't know anything else. And I thought, probably about right, Your Honour. But, yeah. And you come straight out the gate. You're planning it from in there. Going to all them areas all over again. I wasn't really the cleverest, was I? I mean, you got some, there were some supposed highlights at the time where you thought you was the greatest Raffles or Pink Panther of all time because you found some big diamonds and everything, and then you can go and show off, but really you didn't even know what to do with the money. You know what I mean? And, you know, coming up and affecting people's lives by stealing their belongings. You never saw the significance and the effects of that.
There are things that you've done, though, to give back. Like, you've done some bad things, but you've also done some good things.
Yeah,
like, for one of the things is when you saved that probation officer. Do you want to explain that story a little bit?
Oh, yeah. That's the way I got the Queen's pardon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Wandsworth. It was 1989, about March. My son's mother had just had my son. My son was born. I was getting visits every 2 weeks, which was unusual, being in prison for me, so I had someone visiting me. At that stage, it was the 90s, and I never really got much visits. Maybe one other time I did from the outside world. But she coming regularly, see my newborn son. And then they used to just ship you out the blue in Wandsworth, but they put the slip through your door late at night. So remember, there's no phones or nothing. They put a little slip about that small saying you are being transferred in the morning to the Isle of Wight. Make sure your kit's packed. They would come before normal unlock, which will be about 7 o'clock. So you walk to reception and sit in a holding cell and get ready to be shipped out, right? Only this time, because it was the Isle of Wight and it's the furthest, and you have to go on a ferry and all that to Parkhurst, Albany, and Camp Hill. I had 2 days to get ready because so they give you 2 days notice. So the next morning, I went exercise because in them days you had to walk around one specific way in Wandsworth. It was terrible, brutal Wandsworth. And that stage you couldn't talk, shout up on the landings and all that. They'd jump on you, honey.
Yeah.
I know it's really
I've
weird.
heard some stories about
Wandsworth was
Wandsworth.
thing and all that. I remember walking around the centre once and talking to going, oi, yeah, my mate he was on another wing and I was walking around to go to a visit or education or something. I went, oi, and he looked at me, this PO, he hated me because I was cheeky, right? I was only young. And he went, right, and they all jumped on me. I was laughing. But yeah, so I went down, exercise, came off the yard, the exercise yard, and you're walking back in, going back to your cells. So I'm thinking, you can't go, when you make an application, probation only used to come in once a week from the outside, right, honey? And I knew the only way that I could get out of getting a transfer to the Isle of Wight is by seeing the probation and saying, look, I've just had a kid. She won't be able to travel. So I tried to use that old chestnut to get out of it. So what I did, there's the ones downstairs, the twos where you come in from exercise, on C-wing ones, if there's a freeze and then there's a four. So walking through, you're wearing all blue at that time. So what I did, instead of going up to the freeze where I was banged up with a geezer called Black Nuts, Steve O'Connor, right? I went down onto the ones where they do the surgery. They built a bomb and all that was around then as well. I went into the recess toilet, which is on the ones you didn't have no toilets in the cell at that time. So you'd have to, when you wanted to do a doo-doo, you either do it in a bucket or when you're out, go into the recess. Like you press your doorbell and go, Gov, can I go toilet to do? Is it number 2 or number 1? It's number 2, isn't it? That's what they call it. So I went. So what I did was I was pretending to go back to my cell, but going through the ones to get up to the staircase, and everybody bang up, doing all that. But I went into the recess. I said, I've got to see the probation. Otherwise, it takes a week to get an application in. To see her, I won't have enough time because I'll just get moved. So I run into the recess, the toilet area, and I put my feet on the door because I know when they walk past, they're going to look under the thing. But if you don't see no legs, you won't check, right, honey? So I was doing that. And then I heard, yeah, everyone's away, sir. And then they go into the tea room, right? And it's near the probation offices, but it's on that side. And the probation's on there, and the where all the cards are, where the cells are, that's the middle there, yeah? There's a queue outside the probation, but it's that way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the door's that way. But there's no glass, or was there glass? I can't really remember, but I didn't really wait. So I was thinking I was going to get, someone would come out and go, oi, have you got your application slip saying you're meant to be outside the probation office to see her? Because I was at the back and there was someone in there already. So, but I got there at the time where I thought maybe this is the queue. Didn't see who went in there first. So I'm standing there, but I'm thinking it's going to be long. You can't stand at the back of the queue, Yammy, because they might come and say, listen, you've got to go back upstairs. Yammy, what you doing here? But they were all in the tea room opposite. So what I did was push to the front of the queue, just walked past them, because if that's that way, the door's that way, but no one's looking through the door.
Yeah.
But I've gone to the front, just knock, and pushed open the door. And when I got in there, he was on top of her, this geezer, the raving lunatic. And he had something around her throat, but her eyes looked wide. So when I got in, I was staring at him, and remember, I was only not that as strong as I turned out to be at that time. I was brave. But he looked up at me. She was getting up. I don't know, but I must have got there at the start of it, right? But I went round in slow motion, it felt like, honey. And he went to wave it at me. I grabbed him. But for some reason, me and him fell over the desk. Because remember, he was at the back with her. So then we fell over, but I was lucky because it ended up, when we fell over the table, I ended up on top of him. So I got a couple in, she ran outside, and then the bell went. And about 200 screws came. I've never seen as many prison officers as that in my whole life, right? So She's shocked, obviously, can't really talk, but she's over there in the corner and they're all whispering in her ear. So they said, wrap him up and wrap him up. So they're wrapping the geezer up first. I said, I ain't done nothing, right? They said, right, wrap him up. Right. So they put my hands down like that. And I'm thinking, oh, for fuck's sake, I ain't even done anything. You know what I mean? So, but as I'm going through the door, you have to go out the gate from C-Wing. E-Wing's bang opposite. And it's a long walk. When it wraps up, it's a long way to the segregation, right? So I'm thinking I've done this shift before because I had a fight on A-Wing to move across the C-Wing at that time. And then, you know, they can hold onto your neck and you can't even breathe properly. But I could see all the feet while my head was down and I could see the lady in between them. But then she came running over and was moving her head saying, no, not him. So she started talking. And then there's this prison officer called Mr. Baker, who's legendary for catching villains with drugs on visits and things like that, right? Probably going to be in my book, he was. He said, take your hands off him. He goes, let cut the skull. And he went like that. He goes, you know what, boy? You're my hero. He goes, now get back upstairs, right? I went upstairs and then they locked me up and I was breathing heavy and Black Nuts was saying, what's happened? You know, I said, well, I've opened the door and someone was on top of the lady. So I started having a go. And then he goes, oh, no, Yammy, you hero. I said, oh, don't mess about. They're all going to have a go at me and all that. So then Mr. Turner, they used to call him Mr. Angry, he used to ring the bell in the morning and go, unlock the bastards, right? 8 in the morning, shh, slop out and all that. Called down by him because he's the main man on the wing. Get into the room. He says, right, stand there, Yammy. I said, yes, sir. The governor standing there in a suit. He said, now listen, what you did there was the most heroic act. I'll be applying to the Home Office to get you some kind of reward. Right? I goes, yeah, but Gov, don't ask me to go on any, I'm not going to go and give it, I'm not going to, don't worry about that now. If anyone says anything to you, you'll be out of here so fast your feet won't touch. I goes, all right, Mr. Turner, thank you. Right, so I've gone back upstairs and then Mr. Baker's come up and goes, unlock your door, you're going on the hot plate.
What is the hot plate?
Working on the servery downstairs. Oh. So then I got downstairs. He goes, and you have an extra fish today. And everyone was looking and but then the U's and the R's and blah, blah. Then I went to Downview and got clean for a bit. It wasn't really starting to take drugs at that time, but then they was calling me names for saving her. But then all the big ones, like, you know, like, who were like Freddie Foreman, the grandfather, who had the great morals about women and children in them days.
Yeah.
And they said, what you did there was the right thing, Yammy, all right? Oh, listen, don't worry about all that, because it was only spontaneous, especially when, you know, you witnessed your mum and that getting beaten by your father and other people, you know, that in them days, it wasn't really, you weren't really meant to hit women and do things to children. Those were the standards we lived by. We know that there were some secret women beaters and domestic abusers, but, you know, it's hidden a little bit more and probably accepted by the white, but it wouldn't really be loads of it, like to say on the scale that there is now.
Yeah, back in the day, it was
them lot, the hierarchy and the well-known faces would not respect all that. They won't respect you. Even if you got nicked for a domestic and you was inside, they wouldn't talk to her.
Yeah.
Even if they know you're not guilty or guilty, they don't know, but Freddie, your granddad and people like that, they won't be having a bar of it. Yeah. To be honest, honey, it wasn't that for now. You see a wing landed full of domestic, nick for threatening their missus, beating them up. But in the old days, you get really pillared for that, which is strange. Again, with the times that have changed, which I've noticed, you know, the kind of things that are going on, there's nothing. It's just got steadily worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, it's at houses and stuff. You wouldn't go to someone's house if you had an argument with them, like back in the day.
No, you mustn't.
Now you would.
Yes, honey, sorry. No, you don't bring it to the doorsteps.
Yeah.
Of mums and daughters, and they're not the ones who committed the crime. Really, no rules. They wouldn't have done that back in the day. Yeah. Because they know there's many ways to skin a cat. They wouldn't talk about it either. Can you imagine Granddad Joey Pyle and Freddie Foreman being in jail with an iPhone, going, yeah, it's me, Freddie, and Big Joe, and going like that. Yeah, you went Colony, went Parkhurst, and You wouldn't imagine them even showing their fucking faces, would ya?
No.
You know what I mean? And these lot here telling everyone everything before they're even hinting that they've done crimes. You're better off going to the police station and admitting it. Because they know that the police are watching absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And they know about gang name, who's at beef with who and all that. Because it's on all kind of programs already. You know that when someone dies, they think, well, who's he affiliated to? It's not rocket science. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to work all that out, do you? You know what I mean? So, no, times have definitely changed, and the old ways and morals and things and the high standards of, you know, not doing evil things. Unfortunately, now we're hearing more about evil every day than ever before.
What would you tell someone who is like incarcerated now and is going down a bad path? What kind of advice would you give to them?
While they're in there? Do your bird, mate. You know what I mean? Depends on the crime, I suppose, but not being too harsh. But I'd be worried for some of the youngsters, to be honest. I don't know what they're really getting into, because you're going to get your 25s and 30s for senseless, unnecessary murders based on a postcode. 5 of you on one charge, 1 of you does it. It's often the loose cannon out of the group, and the older one's telling them, listen, if you do that, then you're going to be like me one day, and you're going to live in, you know, this fantasy land that you're king because you're selling drugs and you got this and all that. That's if you live for it, and that's if you don't get lifed off before you get there. And even when you get there, you still got problems for the things that you have done, because when people lose people close to them, they never forget. You know what I mean? Some leave early from gangs, but the majority stay, and they go to prison, and it's not what they thought. Because you're going to mature in prison away from gang culture, because you're going to grow out of gangs at some stage, and the drills, and when you get older, you'll get a little, but then you're going to be in there doing a long life sentence, and then you're going to mature in there, and you're going to realise you did everything for absolutely nothing, and your whole life, and then you've got to come out and learn all over again, like I had to. When you do all those years behind the door, you got no life experiences, honey.
Yeah, when you come out, because you didn't have any life experiences, how did you kind of adapt to life when you come out?
I just decided, after obviously having been paralysed and all that, when I got out, just before I got out, I just knew that I wasn't going to commit crime. That's the first thing you've got to do. And then life experiences, I've had the rub of the green, the demons from the past with lifestyle, being on social media, TV, the journey so far. Drugs brought me down for a bit. Looking back on some of the videos, I can't believe the state I was in the first year or so. Then I had my first relationship, that didn't work out. Mum died, broken-hearted. Then I was moving around the country, and then I got lucky and got other places to stay, and then I got a little bit more settled. Then you lose people on the outside, and then you kind of know what loss is all about, because in there, when people die and you hear on the out, you haven't really bonded with anyone because you've never been out. I kind of took a couple of deaths really bad, and then I started drinking, and then that caused me problems. But the life experiences of using a language that you use inside on the outside is not applicable, because some things I say and mean, people look at me like you're a bit of a weirdo. What do you mean? But it'd be how you talk on the landings. So I had to learn that. Not being a criminal no more was easy for me, but the demons, behaviours, places, risk factors regarding misuse of substances and people not really being who they say they are was hurtful as well, and self-inflicted stuff as usual with the behaviours from prison. And then, I reached the stages now of being teetotal for the first, and I'm feeling at peace. I'm really happy to move on to the next stage of the journey now, which starts with being on your interview today. And I've done a warm-up last week with Ozzy, and now I'm me interviewing you. So I've got a good run. My diary's booked, more organisation, new ways of living on the outside, a bit of exercise, bit of routine, make sure you're busy. Stay thing is not one big life, because what I was finding, honey, was everywhere I went, everyone was buying me drinks, but I couldn't get home. It was just, and I wouldn't eat if I was in the, and then it was doing what drugs did. And then it was a sad existence. I was at the pits of hell, Angel, and it was nearly the end for me again. Just swigging whiskey bottles and brandy bottles first thing in the morning for breakfast, old iron chest. And then you get stuck. You can't function. You can't go and do your work, can you?
Yeah.
And then slowly but surely, I realised once bitten, twice shy. You've had 3 attempts at thinking you can get off it. You better get off it. And you've got a journey, and you promise God that you make amends, pass on your experiences, be a decent role model, and not so much about being on TV and social media and all the likes, the views, the love. You can get carried away with it all. It's not. It is. It's lovely, and I've kept it as real as I could since I've been out. But ultimately, I've got a duty of care to deliver those experiences, those emotional makeups, the sense of belonging, the abuse, the victims, substance abuse, love, loss, rejection, all the things that I was feeling that brought me out of the darkness into the light. You've got to help the sufferers and bring about how you dealt with trauma. And, the best advice that I can give, and you can only do that if you're clean and you're fixed yourself before you start getting out and about to do all the subjects that you're not going to be able to do in one day. But we'll start from the beginning, and we'll get the interviews on the board, presenting all walks of life. Then maybe into schools. They've been after me on Channel 5 and doing, psychological breakdowns, deterring kids and people from going down the same path, and that there's nothing really in it for anyone, because whilst you serve those long sentences, when you come out with no life experiences, because you've been away too long, you're getting another sentence. So in fact, you're doing 2 sentences because you know nothing, and people succumb to going back to their old ways because it was the only way that they knew how to do it. But what will happen is, what happened to me, you keep going back and back and back until you realise one day you wake up on the landing, you'll be looking for Big Joe, Uncle Dave, then you'll be looking for Tell, then you're looking for the other Dave, and then you'll be looking for all those that you saw back in the day, and you wake up and all you got is a bunch of kids from different parts of the country, all in gangs and all that. And there'd be no one left there apart from you. And that's what I felt on the final sentence.
What would you tell the viewers watching about how crime doesn't pay?
Crime doesn't pay. I did it all for the wrong reasons. I realised I wasn't who I thought I was, really. I think I was always a softie. I think I used drugs as a way to make me dangerous and off-key. Crime definitely don't pay, because you might get those short-term, depending on what your crime is, but no one's ever been that clever. Drugs, robberies, burglaries, stick-ups, kidnaps, robbing other criminals, whatever. You still end up in jail. So crime never pays, and you get it taken off you one way or another. You can get robbed by criminals yourself when you've got too much money. They confiscate your money off you. The more money you got, when you get, eventually, all you have to do is get nicked once. You could get away with things 10, 20, 30 times. And the thing about crime is it's highly addictive. When you think you've got away once, you always think, well, I'll keep doing it this way, and you won't get nicked.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
Times have changed as well.
And at times it was always the same, because even when they didn't have the CCTV and all that, everyone still used to get nicked. So there wasn't really, it's not karma as such, but it's when you do bad things. All you need is a split second on the burglary or robbery for it to go badly wrong, and you might be on murder charges. All you need to do is sell drugs to the wrong person, and they might die. You know what I mean? Sell drugs to someone, you might sell it to the police. Either way, or you drop a bit on the floor. It happens.
Yeah.
You've got police and everyone nicking the drugs out of the safe boxes and doing it themselves. There's more corruption now than ever before in history, or maybe there always was, but it's coming to light.
And if someone dies on that drug, then you'd have that
You've
on your
got
conscience.
that on your hands, but
Yeah.
you get good ones and bad ones and everything, but you will get caught. You will. Because everybody knows what you're doing. Unless you've got one person you're selling to and you're getting all the money off him for the rest of the month. But you can't. Someone's going to know. They're going to tell someone else. That's the way that it always worked, but it is. The more you do badness, some people do it once and get nicked straight away. There's no room for it. It will go wrong, and especially the ones that think they're the big dons out here. When they get to prison, certain prisons I've been, they'll be at the bottom of the pecking order when you're around surrounded by a bunch of killers and nobody cares and nobody's got anything to lose because they've all given up. Because why? They're not getting out any day too soon.
Yeah. Going back to how you're feeling today and stuff, You had a bad spiral injury.
Spinal.
Spinal, yeah.
Where it spiraled out of control.
That's the one.
That's it, honey.
How did that come about? How did that happen?
Well, on the last sentence, when I was doing 8 years, I did nearly all of that. I couldn't get my head down. I was on a recall. They said that I nicked a £1 million Richie Millie watch while I was in the hostel, because I never actually got out of the hostel stage. I was on conditions, and I was in jail on a recall. I asked somebody to give me something to smoke so I could get my head down. The geezer rolled a joint for me, or I couldn't, because I can't really roll spliffs or nothing. So he rolled it. He said, "Yammy, I don't really want to give you this." And then I left it to the night. I said, "Well, let me smoke." I was down at the time. I took 2 puffs, and I thought I could fly. So it was a trip or some kind, or spice or some kind. I stood up on the thing, dived all the way down, and I died. And I was paralysed, and they said, "You'll never walk again." The cervical 3, 4, 5. I was lying on the floor. All the floor was covered in blood, and it took an hour for them to open the cell door. It took an hour for them. I got locked outside the gate with the ambulance, and then I went to St George's Hospital, and they said, "No, you won't be able to walk or ever use your hands again. You've got the same injuries as Superman, Christopher Reeve." And round about after 5 months, I was back up. But the injuries are still there, though. So that was that.
Must have been that relief, though, knowing that you got up and then you can function.
But you still got, it's still there. So it's not relief, it's real punishment, to be honest. But no, manageable mentally. And that's helped me get teetotal as well. I'm thinking, think about all the things you beat and came through.
Yeah, stay on the right
Alcohol's
path.
a light bit of work for you, Uncle Yammy. You beat everything that ever came your way, even though it was all self-inflicted. You know what I mean? You took responsibility for your actions. You know what I mean? You pleaded guilty to what you did. You served more time than you should have. Yeah? And God gives me a little bit at the end to make amends and pass on those experiences.
There's that saying, God gives his strongest warriors. I'm just saying.
No, that's, I know what
you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, she's going to be like, just like me, isn't she? Like the female version. Give her 5 years. She'd be like Emma Kenny. Emma Kenny's the greatest lady presenter up there on YouTube, but I can see the same thing for young Honey. But yeah, Honey.
Yeah, we'll wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to listen to your story.
Nice to meet you.
Make sure you guys like and subscribe if you can. That'd be great. I'm trying to reach 1K followers, subscribers. Yeah, thank you. You got anything to say?
No, goodbye. Well done, Honey. Your first interview. I'm always a difficult one to interview.
No,
all the
you were
best
great.
to all of you. I'll see you all later on my show. But for now, it's Honey Pyle from Crime Don't Pay podcast. I love you all dearly. Thank you very much.